welcome. I'm really glad to be uh, with you this afternoon for an hour to talk about living rap. As I'm sure you all know, I assume that you're all familiar with rap and that you have all may have already developed a rap or worked with someone to develop a rap. But let me just briefly go step by step through rap. That the first thing you want to do is develop a strong wellness toolbox. We'll talk more about each of these sections as we go along. You want to have the daily maintenance plan, which includes a list of signs that you are feeling really well, what you need to do every single day to stay that way, and what are the things you might need to do on any given day to stay that way. And then there's the trigger section where you identify those upsetting things that might happen, things that you can't really predict, and then an action plan for dealing with those triggers. And then the early warning signs, those things that just you notice that you don't feel quite right, that are signs that things may be getting worse, and then a plan for dealing with those early warning signs so that instead of getting worse, you feel better. And then what I think is really a very, very important part of RAP, when things are breaking down, what are the signs that you're having a really, really rough time? And the action plan of the wellness tools you're going to use when you're having a really rough time, and then the advanced directive and the post-crisis plan. So that's RAP. And developing RAP is really the easy part. The challenge is using RAP every single day as a guide to your recovery. And it is really a daily process. So before we get into that, I want to remind you about the key concepts and the values and ethics of RAP. These are very important pieces that really surround RAP. And I've been out traveling over the past few weeks, have done a number of different conferences, have spoken at a number of different conferences, and have become acutely aware of the human rights violations actually that are happening to people within the mental health system and in the community. And it seems to me that one way that we can counteract that with RAP is to make sure that the key concepts are being followed at all times, that the key concepts are being followed, that we are using the key concepts as a guide in our life, and then that the values and ethics are being rigidly adhered to. So I just want to remind you that the key concepts are hope, that we all need to have a sense of hope anytime we're working with RAP and anytime we're working on recovery and through all of our life, that this is up to us. It's our personal responsibility. We have to do that. It's up to us to take responsibility for our own lives. And then I want to say a little bit more about education. And one of the things that I've found a lot on my recent trips, I don't travel as much as I used to, and so this is new to me getting kind of out in the field. I found that lots of people were taking medications and that they didn't know what those medications did, and they didn't know anything about why they were taking the medications, what the possible side effects were. And that I was really rather astounded that people were taking sometimes many different medications, and they really didn't know why. And so I want to tell you that on our website, if you go to the right-hand side, there's a place where it says download forms. Go into download forms and click on that, and then go down the right side of the crisis planning page, and you'll find all the forms, and there's a form there that's called Questions to Ask the Doctor About Medication. And you should take that when you go to the doctor and get the doctor to fill out a copy of that sheet for every medication that you're taking. And if the doctor doesn't have that information, then you need to look it up yourself. You can look it up on the internet. You can look it up in the library. If you feel like you can't do it, then you can get one of your supporters to do it for you. But that's very, very important information for you to have. So I really want to stress that with you, that's a very important document. Actually, Yvonne Smith reminded me of the importance of it. And it's a really key document. There's another document there that's information that you need to tell the doctor when you go for a physical. And that's another educational piece that you need to fill out before you go to the doctor to make sure that all of your issues are addressed. And that if the doctor can't do them in the time allotted, that you have another appointment. So two important forms. Again, go to our website, www.rapandrecoverybooks.com, and then you'll see on the right-hand side a place where it says download forms. Click on that, and it will take you to a page. We're making this even more accessible soon, but just go down the right-hand side of the page that you come to, and you'll see all the forms listed there, and you can download them, and you can copy them as much as you need to. So we've got hope, personal responsibility, education, self-advocacy. You need to get out there and advocate for yourself. It's up to you what you do, what you put into your body. All of these things are your responsibility, and you need to advocate to get what it is you need and want for yourself. And you need to have a strong support team. And lots of people don't have strong support teams. There's lots of times when I look at my support team and say, whoops, I better do some work on that. So support is really important and key. So I want to go, before we really get into RAP itself, I want to briefly go over the values and ethics. And again, the overlap between the key concepts and the values and ethics is hope. You always need to remember that there's hope. There's always, people get well, they stay well for long periods of time. And sometimes they never have any problem again, and sometimes they just have it for a little while. Um, so what we have learned, what the research has showed, we used to be told that if you have a psychiatric illness, that you're going to have that for your rest of your life, that you need to take the medications for the rest of your life. It will never go away, and there's nothing you can do to help yourself. We know now that that's not true, that research, especially in research in countries where they don't use any medications, has showed that psychiatric illnesses and having mental health issues and mental health distress is episodic, which means it happens for a period of time. And there's lots of things you can do for yourself to help you get over it. Many, many, many options, and we'll talk about that when we talk about the Wellness Toolbox. So hope, everything that you do should be self-determined. It involves personal responsibility, empowerment, and self-advocacy. Remember that in all of your treatment, all of the help that you get when you're working with your supporters, no matter who you're working with, to get help, or if you are working with people, you must be treated as an equal with dignity, compassion, mutual respect, and unconditional high regard, as a unique, special individual, including acceptance of diversity with relation to culture, ethnicity, language, religion, race, gender, age, disability, sexual identity, and readiness. Readiness comes up a lot because I will get calls from people, and they'll describe somebody to me, and they'll say, and they're not really ready to do RAP yet, are they? I say, that has nothing to do with it. Anybody is ready to do RAP whenever they want to do it. That's the only issue about readiness that we have with RAP. So you have to insist that you be treated as an equal. If you're the care provider, you need to be treated well. And if you're the person who's having the difficulties and who's using RAP, you need to be treated well. We need to remember always that there are no limits to recovery, and we don't want to put any limits to what we do. That all of RAP and everything you do with RAP is voluntary. Nobody should be forcing you to do anything. You are the expert on yourself. You know more about yourself no matter who you are than anybody else. We need to focus on strengths and away from perceived deficits, what we see as our deficits. In RAP, we want to avoid the use of clinical, medical, and diagnostic language. It does not help, and it can even be harmful. I know people who've gone for years thinking certain ways and feeling certain ways about themselves because of a diagnosis, and that may not have been at all accurate. That there's no place for clinical, medical, and diagnostic language in RAP. That always that we find people really benefit from peer support. Peer support really, really works for people. We want answers to these kinds of issues that are simple and safe, that are non-invasive. And we're going to be talking a lot about those today. And all of the work that we do with RAP, whether we're living RAP or developing our RAP, should be trauma informed, which means that we now clearly understand that the reason people have mental health issues and mental health distress is because bad things have happened to them in their life. And we don't have to know what those bad things are. That's really not important to this process, but to have that understanding that we're not broken, but that bad things have happened and that we have normal reactions to the bad things that happened, and that's what we're working to get over. And that's what mental um, health issues are all about. That's what mental health distress is all about. We don't have any information that indicates anything to the contrary. Um, So let's get into living with RAP. Make sure that you know where your RAP is. So I know where my RAP is right now. It's here on my computer. I have it saved in the Build Your Own RAP program. So that's where it is, and it's easy for me to go in there and change it and to look at it, to get ideas, to remind myself what's my daily maintenance plan like, what do I do? I've just got this upsetting thing happened. Um, the thing that's come up for me lately is that I've been very, very tired. I've been on the road a lot, and I really felt like I was getting into the when things are breaking down phase. And so I went back to my RAP and looked at what it would look like for me to follow that plan and to reorganize my life so that I could do that. So you can have it on your computer in the Build Your Own RAP program or RAP for your computer. You can find both of those on the website. You might have it in a 3-ring binder that you keep in a special place in your house. Make sure you know exactly where that is. You can have it in a RAP book. We have now in almost all the RAP books we have are the forms for developing a RAP. We have a filing system with a you can have a filing system with a file folder for each section. Okay. It seems like we have some technical difficulties going on. So I hope you're all hearing this. If not, it will be recorded on our website. Have your RAP available where you can easily find it for easy review. It could be on a breakfast table, it can be on your bedside table, it can be on your desk, it can be in your briefcase or your pocket. We now have those neat little My Wraps, the pocket wraps, so you can keep them there. At first, you want to review it every day, and as you get used to it over time, you will need to review it less and less and revise it whenever you feel like you need to. So now I want to talk about how we live RAP with regard to the wellness toolbox, and I'm going to go through RAP piece by piece. The cornerstone of developing a RAP and a key wellness resource is the wellness toolbox. For many people, this is the first time they've been introduced to the idea that there are simple, safe things that they can do to help themselves. So that may be the way it is for you. This may be the first time you've been introduced to the idea that there are simple, safe things you can do to help yourself. So you have this wellness toolbox. You want to think about your wellness toolbox every day. It should be on top. My wellness toolbox, I have to say, quite honestly, is on top for me all the time. When I find myself getting a little stressed, a little anxious, I think about my wellness toolbox. What's in there? What can I use right now? I almost think of my wellness toolbox as well as my RAP as a way of life. For me, it represents a change in how we think about our day and how we think about our life. We are in control, and there are now things we can do to make our life the way we want it to be. I remember those old days when I was told that there was nothing I could do to help myself. And this is different. This is different. So if you want to build up your wellness toolbox over several days, consider everything, large or small, that you do to stay well or help yourself feel better. I think about petting my dog. makes me feel better to pet my dog. It makes me feel better to comb my hair. It makes me feel better to even go outside and look at a tree. All of those things should be in your wellness toolbox. Everything that you have in all of your wrap should be in your wellness toolbox. If you need more tools, carry a small notebook with you. Every time you notice a wellness tool, jot it down. And when you can, add them to your wellness toolbox list. The other day I was at a conference and a woman said that a wellness tool for her um, was to, when she's laying awake at night, she can't get to sleep, she thinks of a wellness tool that she adds to that starts with each letter of the alphabet. So she starts with A, and she might say, a wellness tool for me is to eat an apple. A wellness tool for me is to ride my bike. A wellness tool for me is to pet my cat. And she just goes through the alphabet like that. So I tried it a few times, and I was asleep before I got through too many. Ideas for your are everywhere. You just self-help books, magazines, friends, family members, care providers. We have a wellness tools blog on the Rapid Recovery uh, Books website. So we have Winning Against Relapse, self-help books. The internet is loaded with wellness tools, friends and supporters, care providers, classes, workshops, seminars, groups. The key thing here is to use them for daily planning, and use them even for moment-to-moment planning. Use your wellness tools. In addition to using it to build your action plans, use them every single day for things to do that will help you feel better and enhance and enrich your life. So you want to, so in addition to keeping your wellness toolbox um, in your wrap, I would make a copy of it and have it on your computer, on your phone, by your bedside, on a table, on the wall, put it on the refrigerator with a magnet, in your pocket. Perhaps you have a bulletin board. Make copies of them and have them around, because this is such a valuable, valuable resource. Some people have a physical box, basket, or drawer where they keep certain wellness tools like CDs and videos, books and magazines, art supplies, pictures, musical instruments, a list of your other wellness tools. So you may want to think about that. Maybe you can have, I have a space where I keep the books that I'm working on reading and the magazines that I like to look through. I have a table where I have my art supplies. I have some pictures that I like to look at, and I know where they are. Know where these things are, have them readily accessible so that when you want to use them, you can use them. So you could have a wellness toolbox area in your home if you're lucky. You could have a room or part of a room. You could have a workshop area where you do the things that you love to do. You could have a corner or a closet. So that's the wellness toolbox. If you have any questions about that, write them in, and we can answer them later. So the next one then is what I am like when I'm well. And what I'm like when I'm well is the wrap touchstone. Refer back to it whenever you can't remember what it's like to feel really well. That's, you've got this wonderful list. It keeps you on track. It gives you something to work toward. So always refer back. Just read through it every so often. As you get to know more about what it feels like to feel well, you may want to add words to this list. You might want to include a picture or several pictures of yourself that you really like, where you think, this is what I want to look like, this is what I want to feel like. Write a poem or a story about yourself. You can include that. Make a list of your positive attributes and achievements. So keep adding to that list so that it's a more complete description of what you're like when you're well, and then refer back to it. Then moving back to the daily maintenance, moving on to the next section of the daily maintenance plan, that first part where you listed all the things you need to do every single day to stay as well as possible is the key to your wellness. It's the mundane things, it's the day-to-day things that you need to do. Make sure that this list really works for you. You want to make sure that it's not too long and it's not too short. Revise it until it works for you. Change it when it stops working for you. And if the circumstances of your life change, then you're going to need to change it again. If you get a job, if you have a child, if you have children that you're taking care of, if you get a pet, all of these things, you're going to need to change it. So keep that up to date, and keep your days set up so it's easy to do the things on this list. And I think this is where I often get into trouble. Then notice how much better you feel when you do the things on this list. So then we move on to the things that I might need to do. Refer to this list every day at first. Not doing something on this list can get you really off track. A good question to ask yourself in the morning: what are the things I need to do today to avoid stress in my life, to keep things going smoothly? And then you want to do them. As you do this work on your own behalf, you're becoming your own best friend. And then moving along to triggers. Over time, as you work with your rap, when you first wrote your rap, you may not have had a very long list of triggers. Over time, you become more and more aware of them. I've become more aware of them still. Uh, and some that used to be triggers are not so much triggers anymore. So, but the key thing with triggers is that you need to stop what you're doing. You need to really stop what you're doing when you notice them. Think about your action plan and choose to do one or several things on that list until you feel okay again. That's the key, is to interrupt what's going on. And if you can't, be sure you have some things on your list so that if you can't interrupt, so that if you're out with a group of people, you're on the bus, you can't get off the bus, you can't just stop what you're doing. Make sure that there's some deep breathing kinds of things, some visualization kinds of things on your list so that you can do those if you get into one of those kinds of situations. The thing with triggers, if something really big happens, the kind of thing we don't like to predict, we don't want you to think about your triggers and think about, suppose there's a huge earthquake, or suppose we have a big bad storm, suppose I have a huge loss in my life, suppose I have some kind of an illness. We don't want to write that on our list of triggers because we don't want to spend a lot of time doing what I call catastrophizing. But what I'd like you to keep in mind about this is that when those big things happen, and they do happen sometimes, you take the tools that are in your action plan for triggers and you use them more intensively. Whatever that tool might be, use it more intensively. If your tool is take some deep breaths, you might want to do those repeatedly through the day. If it's a visualization exercise, you may want to do it several times during the day. If it's get some exercise, you may want to walk further. You may want to, if it's talking to a supporter, you want to spend a lot more time talking to a supporter. And then when something big happens, go back to your wellness toolbox and use your other tools as well. Just check it out, see what else there is there that you could do, and use those tools. Some of these times when we're triggered are very, very, very hard to get through, and you're going to have to be really vigilant to work your way through it. You may need to take some time off from your responsibilities to do these things. It's worth it. It keeps you on track. You may need a wellness afternoon, days, even weeks or months, depending on what's happened. You work your way through difficult times using your action plan and your wellness tools as your guide and as your support. It's not easy, but it works. It really works. Even through the very hardest of times, this is the way to get yourself through. Over time, you'll recognize your triggers more quickly. You'll be able to identify more of them. Using RAP, some things that used to be triggers may no longer be triggers. So the next section then is early warning signs. Being familiar with your early warning signs helps you to be in touch with yourself and get to know yourself very well. Over time, you'll know yourself better and better, and you'll more easily recognize these signs. When I first started thinking about these, there were some glaring examples of things that over time I had just kind of overlooked. Like, what about those times when I go into town and somebody's pulling me back because I'm not bothering to look both ways when I cross the street? And what about those times when I get into the car and I don't want to bother to to buckle my seatbelt, or when I don't feel like answering the phone? Um, so living it means stopping when you notice the signs, the early warning signs, and then doing the things on your action plan. It may mean 3 5-minute breaks. It may mean a long talk with a friend. It may mean canceling something. It may be avoiding someone or something. Whatever it is that works for you. So then the next section, I think it was a very wonderful experience when the group that developed RAP thought about this section when things are breaking down. They thought about, well, that's the time, oh, I think we better go to the emergency room. Maybe I better call the crisis workers. And then they thought more and more about it. And they said, we have this whole list of wellness tools. I bet you we could get through this on our own, or maybe with the help of our supporters. And that was really a different way to go now. So when things are breaking down is a critical time. You feel awful, you feel horrific. It's the hardest time to revert to taking care of yourself. You really don't want to do it. You can do it. You really have to push yourself. And I want to emphasize that you have to do it. You have to push yourself. You really have to push yourself. So this takes work, effort, but you can do it. And it's much better than getting into a situation where other people have to take over. It may take many days to work through this. It may include things that I like to call hospital days at home, where you're just at home and you're taking care of yourself all day long. That's worth it. It's much, much better than having to go to some facility and somebody else trying to figure out what will help you, sometimes not figuring out the right thing, maybe doing things that make things worse. Um, when you're at home and your supporters understand how they need to help you, and you know what you need to do for yourself, you're going to be much better off. Support is key. It's worth it. You're worth it. So that's the when things are breaking down. So I want to go through, spend some time with you on the using the advanced directive, but I also want to let you know that we're going to have another workshop, another webinar, excuse me, that goes specifically into the advanced directive, because this is a really in-depth topic and lots of people have a difficult time with it. When I don't suggest that you develop your advanced directive before you do the rest of your RAP. Starting with the wellness toolbox and doing your daily maintenance section, your triggers and action plan, early warning signs and action plan, and when things are breaking down an action plan, are all going to help you prepare to develop your advanced directive. But it's a long process. Some of those other pieces of RAP are just going to take a little while. You can work on them from time to time. It's not nearly as hard as developing an advanced directive. An advanced directive is much more difficult, and one of the things about that that's difficult is that you have to give it in advance to key people who can take action in your behalf. And so hopefully you'll never have to use an advanced directive, but if you do need it, it can make all the difference between working yourself easily and safely through a crisis time, or having it being more upsetting and traumatizing to you. So you want to protect yourself by being clear, absolutely clear about when others step in, who you want to step in, and what you want them to do. You need to be absolutely clear about that. When do you want them to step in? And thinking about that can be really, really difficult. So you may need to talk with some supporters. When is it that I really need somebody to step in? Certainly, one of the times when you would want others to step in would be if you're unconscious, and so that would be one. Or if you didn't know who your family members and friends were, things like that. You want to be very clear about it, and who you want to step in and what you want them to do. You want to be sure that your plan includes supporters who are willing to follow your directive, and you want to sort of try and develop the mindset that you use whatever, you know, you can, whatever resources you can pull up out of yourself to be as cooperative as possible, that is going to work in your favor. It helps by what I've been hearing from people is that when they got into crisis and they didn't have a crisis plan, that when they got into crisis, they were really, really treated badly. And hopefully, if you have an advance directive, it will keep that from happening. But if you do use whatever bits of yourself you've got left at this hard, hard time to be as cooperative as possible, that will help too. If you're in a care provider position, being understanding and listening and listening and listening to people is the best thing that you can do as well. To be powerful and effective, your advance directive needs to include a strong plan so that you can stay at home or in the community if possible. It needs to, and I want to be sure that you have worked hard and that you've developed a plan like that so that when the time comes that you need it, you can really live this plan, that it is a plan that your supporters can easily put into action, that it makes sense, that it this plan will allow you to stay at home or in the community if at all possible, that your supporters can help each other, assist each other, can provide you with food, can take you to your appointments, can be in contact with doctors if that's necessary, with your counselor. All of those things make it a very, very strong plan. Do you want to be in your room by yourself? You want to say that. I want to be in my room by myself. I just want my dog in my room. Or please, everybody, stay right where I am. Stay close to me. Don't let me be by myself. Whatever it is that you want, be sure it's in that very, very strong plan. And you want to be sure and have for your supporters an intensive list of things that they can do to help you and to get ideas to really build your advance directive so that you can really live this advance directive when it's happening. Review your wellness toolbox for ideas. Even when you're in the midst of the crisis, you can review your wellness toolbox for ideas. Remember what I said before about having your copies of your wellness toolbox in various places around your house? Hopefully there'll be a copy right like on your refrigerator door or on your bulletin board, and maybe on a paper beside your bedside. It's going to be right there where you need it. And be sure that you have there a list of indicators that will let others know when they no longer need to follow this directive. So so it's really clear, because what you don't want, you're living this, you've gone through the crisis, you've gotten yourself, you're better, you're feeling a lot better, but you've got some supporters and they don't want to back off. For some people might say, whoa, this is the first time I've ever been able to tell her what to do and she's done it. I'm not going to stop now. And so you want to be sure you can say, look, here's my list. You really don't have to help me anymore. So I'm going to do a little bit more intensive review of the post-crisis plan because I think it will help us to focus on how we live RAP, and that's what we're talking about today. So I'm going to spend the next few minutes talking about the post-crisis plan, and then I'll take your questions. So post-crisis time is you've just been through a very, very difficult time, and you all know what that's like. You're just beginning to feel like you can start taking care of yourself again. You may still be dealing with upsetting feelings in the aftermath of the crisis. And so here you are, and things are getting better and better. All of a sudden, you start to feel like, oh, I'm getting worse. I'm heading for another crisis. This can come at any time through all using your triggers, and you can notice that you're feeling better and then you start feeling worse. Living RAP at this time is especially challenging. It's really, really challenging. So thinking about this time before you even have a crisis, And giving it more attention when you're starting to feel better after a crisis may help you have an easier time recovering and moving on. So we're going to go through some issues that you may want to address and a timetable for resuming this, for resuming using the other parts of your wrap rather than continuing to use your post-crisis plan. So if you've had a very, very difficult time, you're living wrap, you had a very difficult time, and you're starting to feel better, you're going to want to make a list of signs that will let you know when you're ready to use a post-crisis plan. You may still not be thinking too clearly, so having that list for yourself is going to be really helpful. And then you want to list, how would you like to feel when you've gotten better, when you've recovered from the crisis? Is it going to be the same as what you wrote at the beginning of your daily maintenance plan, or is it going to be different from that? Some people change through a crisis, and they want to feel different when they recover. You want to make a list of who you want to support you through this time. Are the people that you want to support you the same ones that supported you through the crisis? Or is it some different people? Are there some people that are really kind of fun, you enjoy being with, that you really want to support you through this time? It might not be the same people you want when you're in the midst of the worst time of all. If you've had to go to the hospital, have a plan for where you'll go when you're discharged. Do you want to go home? Is that going to work out for you? Or maybe you don't want to be alone. Where can you go? Where are you going to go when you're discharged? Who you want to take you there? Really important. Who picks you up at the hospital and who takes you home is something that you want to be careful about. Who do you want to stay with you? It needs to be the right person, as you all sure know. What are the things that, if they're taken care of while you're in a crisis, whether you're staying at home, whether you're in a hospital, whether you're in a respite center, what are the things that you need to list that will make it easier for you if they're taken care of? And what are the things you can ask someone else to do for you? What are those things that, like for me, it would help a lot. Somebody had come into my house. If I was, say I went to the Peer Respite Center, it helped me a lot if somebody came in and cleaned up, did the dishes. Actually, it would help if somebody did the dishes right now. That's kind of where I am. And I'm not in a crisis, but it sure would help to have somebody do the dishes and vacuum the floor. So when you're at this post-crisis phase, that's a really good time for you to ask somebody else to do things for you. What are some things that you don't have to worry about right now that can wait until you feel better? What are some things that you might need to do every day while you're getting yourself better? Will the daily maintenance plan work, or do you need to add some things to that list? Perhaps there's some things and some people that you need to avoid during this post-crisis phase. What are some of those things and people you need to avoid? Is there somebody that was really giving you a hard time before you got feeling so bad? Were there some things that you were doing that really made things worse? And then have a good list of signs that you're beginning to feel worse. So you can see that this is kind of a review of all of that. What are the wellness tools you use if you starting to feel worse? What are the wellness tools you're starting to feel you use if you're starting to feel worse? The things you need to do to prevent things from getting any worse. Some of these seem like similar questions to me, but the process I went through, there was a man named Richard Hart who said you really need a post-crisis plan. So he helped me, and we came up with a list of these kinds of things, and then I shared it with lots of people. And this is the list that they said, you need all of this. You really, really need all of this. And so if you want to skip over pieces of it, you can. What are the signs that you can return to using your daily maintenance plan? What are the changes now that you've been through a very difficult time? Are there changes that you want to make in your wrap? Are there changes you want to make in your lifestyle or your life goals? Maybe through this crisis you realize that, I just can't keep living with my family. I need to have a different roommate. What did you learn from this hard time? Who are the people you need to thank? What are the changes you want to make in your life as a result of what you've learned? And what do you need to do to prevent further repercussions from this crisis? Who do you need to apologize to? Who do you need to make amends with? And are there any medical, legal, or financial issues that need to be resolved? And then you want to set up a timetable. What you have a certain responsibility. What's that responsibility? Is it work, childcare, buying groceries? Um, List who's been taking care of that. Your sister, your partner, a friend. And then describe what you're going to need while you're resuming this responsibility. Someone to go with you, someone to watch your child in the morning, maybe a half-day schedule. What do you need? Lots of times when people are just coming through a crisis, you know, if something difficult happened at the place where you go to eat pizza, they may not want to go there again until somebody goes with them. Or if something bad happened at the post office, they'll want somebody to go with them. Create a step-by-step plan for resuming responsibility, going to work for 1 day the first week, 2 days the second week, 3 days the third week, whatever works. Is it half days you're going to start with? Do those for a while. What's going to work for you? Understand that you can begin using your Wellness Recovery Action Plan as your guide to daily living whenever you want to. At first, you may want to review your plan every day, following your daily maintenance plan and taking other action as you need to. After a while, you'll notice that you remember your plan and you only need to refer to it from time to time unless you're having a difficult time. I think that's the stage that I'm at. I refer to it from time to time. Revise your plan when you discover new wellness tools and find that some things work better for you than others, and as the circumstances of your life change. And get more ideas on how to live RAP by talking to others who had similar experiences. Join a support group. Go to our website at mentalhealthrecovery.com, sign up for the newsletter, take an online course. We have some great groups that you can join if you go to our website. If you go to our website, there are some groups for people who use RAP, and you can type in questions and then people will answer it. And so that if you have issues about living RAP, you can go there. We've got lots of RAP resources, and those are also on the website, and you can refer to those. I want to let you know that we're having another Wrap Around the World conference. It's going to be in Oakland, California. It's going to be January 25th to 27th, 2013. It would be great if you could join us for that. It's going to be a wonderful, wonderful event. And I want to end by saying something that I have discovered is really, really important. Before we go to questions, when my mother was in the hospital, and she was hospitalized for a long time, the thing that turned things around for her, made it possible for her to leave the hospital, to go out of the hospital, and to pick up the pieces of her life and move on, which she did very, very well, was that first a nurse at the hospital started listening to her. And my mother started talking, and she talked and talked and talked about some very, very difficult things that had happened to her when she was growing up, about her brothers being in the war, about just some things that were very, very upsetting to her over time. And this nurse listened and listened and listened to my mother. And my mother sort of apologized because she wasn't used to talking so much. And the nurse said, no, just keep talking. And so she did. And then a volunteer started listening and listening and listening. And then my mother started gathering people together in groups because she found that the listening was so helpful and she was feeling so much better. When people were listening to her and they weren't interrupting with their own stories and they weren't interrupting with advice, it was helping her to figure out what she needed to do to get well and stay well. And she got out of the hospital and she stayed well for the rest of her life. And so if you're in a situation where your friend is having a very, very difficult time, listen and listen and listen to them. Maybe the person that you're providing care for is having a very difficult time. Just listen and listen and listen. A very simple, safe thing that you can do to help somebody that's having a very, very difficult time. So listening and being heard used to be, I think, in everybody's wellness toolbox. So I'm interested in your questions.
Okay. Thank you, Mary Ellen. We have some good questions. I hope you can hear me. The first question we'll ask is RAP helpful for maintaining sobriety or working through personality disorders, or is it meant for mental illness only?
RAP we have found over time, RAP has been in existence now for 15 years. It was discovered in it was developed in 1997 by a group of people who have all kinds of mental health issues, including addictions, and all kinds of health problems. And in all that time, we have found that people with all kinds of health issues, with all kinds of addiction issues, people who are working on their sobriety, people who are working on giving up smoking, that RAP really is amazing in that it works across the board. And it was really incredible that this group of 30 people came up with something that's so universally adaptable. We have a book, RAP for Addiction, so that for people who are trying to maintain their sobriety, I would suggest that book uh, that we developed that has examples that are specific to if you're dealing with that issue.
Great, thanks, Mary Ellen. Here's a question about the advance directive. This is from Miranda. I work in an inpatient mental health facility. If individuals come in but do not have an advance directive yet, is it okay to help them with one, even if they are not at their peak wellness?
I think that it's very, very difficult to work on an advance directive before you've developed the other parts of RAP and when you're having a difficult time already. I think you really need to work through the RAP process. In order to develop a good advance directive, people need to know themselves really, really well. And it's not something that can happen quickly. That I think that it took me 4 months to develop my RAP. I'm working on it a bit every week over time. I know that sometimes mental health agencies are kind of mandating that everybody have an advance directive, and that if you start working with them, they want you to develop them right away. And I think that doesn't work very well, and that the advance directives that get developed that way don't work very well for the person who needs them. So my suggestion is to first develop the rest of RAP. So if somebody has come into your facility on your inpatient unit, the first thing I would help them with is to develop a wellness toolbox. Let's sit down with them and start developing a long list of all the things that are simple and safe that they can use to help them feel better. And then start working with them through RAP, and then get the advance directive later, which means that they may have to do that after they've left the facility. So hopefully there's groups in the community where people can do that.
Great, thanks. Here's another related question about the advance directives. This is from Jennifer. She says, I've heard that in my state, advance directives do not have to be honored. Are there simple, affordable, legal ways to make advance directives more enforceable?
Jennifer, it differs a great deal from state to state on whether advance directives need to be honored. And so you should call the Agency of Protection and Advocacy in your state and find out what the status of that is, and then they can give you specific information on how you can make them, how you can help ensure that they will be honored. Unfortunately, there's always a chance that they won't be honored. But if you have a good list of supporters that you really trust, if you teach them about your advance directive and what's in it, I suggest you get people together. Once you've got your advance directive written, get people together, have some nice snacks, and sit around and chat and talk about your advance directive and how people will work together if you need it. And that will help ensure that no matter what the system does, that your supporters will honor your advance directive. If you have further questions about that, please email us directly through the website.
Here's a question from Heidi. She wants to know, how would you present the RAP material to juvenile delinquents aged 12 to 17?
Okay, that's a really good question. Right now we have in process developing a prototype of the RAP for teens, but basically it's that you just have to adapt it down, and so you just start with them the same way you would with adults, but you're working with teens so that they're going to have different kinds of things in their wellness toolbox, and you're going to help them think, okay, what are all the things that help keep you well, and what do you need what do you like when you're well, and what are the things you need to do every single day to stay well. And you may want to change the name to when you to what are the things that help you do well. They might want to look at it that way. You may not want to talk about it in terms of sickness and wellness. But it's a broad topic. We could do a whole webinar just on that topic. So if you have some specific questions, we have a couple of people that are doing RAP intensively with teams, and if you email us specific questions about working with teams, we're glad to answer them for you.
Great, thank you. Here's a question from Kimberly. She wants to know, how often do you recommend revising RAP?
Kimberly, in terms of revising your RAP, there is no recommendation. You revise it whenever you need to. I try and make sure I get in and revise it every few months. But if there's a big change in your life, perhaps you get married, or you have a child, or you get a job, those are going to be times when you are going to want to revise your RAP. So I couldn't say everybody should revise their RAP every week, because it's just going to be so different for each people. So you will have a sense that your RAP is not quite working for you, and that's going to be when you want to revise it.
Our next question is from Agnes, and she would like you to talk a little bit about how to work if you have very limited support, personal support.
Agnes, it's tough if you have very limited personal support. So for people who have very limited personal support, I would suggest they connect with the online groups that they might get on Facebook, and that they might get involved with our other groups that you can get through the website as a beginning way of building their support network. And then being in a RAP group then is a first start. So people who don't have support systems often develop those support systems by being with other people with similar issues in a support group. I also encourage people who don't have a strong support system to get out to some things in the community that are of interest to them. Maybe they want to get involved in some kind of a faith-based community if they have some kind of a religious or spiritual connection. Maybe they want to start going to the Audubon Society meetings. Maybe they want to go on some walks that are being sponsored, maybe some bird walks. Maybe they want to take a course. They could take an educational course. There's some educational courses that are just for adults that don't give you any credit, and then there's some that you can take for credit. And these are all ways to get out and become more comfortable with people, and to meet people. I wrote a whole book on this topic. I did a whole study on loneliness. And if you have people that you're working with, or this is an issue for you, you may want to get a copy of the loneliness book, because lots of people have said that it's really helpful, and it's pretty intense and has lots of ideas. Volunteering is another thing I should mention. Getting out and volunteering is a way to connect with people, meet people, possible supporters.
Great. Okay, we have time for maybe one or two more questions. So here's one from Kimberly, who'd like to know, what are the advantages or disadvantages when used to provide information that could contribute to the development of occupational therapy interventions when using RAP?
Want to read that again?
Yeah. What are the advantages or disadvantages when used to provide information that could contribute to the development of occupational therapy interventions when using RAP?
I'm not quite sure what you mean, but I think all of the things that I know about occupational therapy are teaching people and working with people on things that are really important to getting by in life, and RAP is a really good way to look at that. Like what are all your wellness tools? All of those tasks that you learn in occupational therapy can be part of your wellness toolbox, and so I think that there's could be a wonderful collaboration and cooperation between occupational therapy and RAP, and I think it would be great. I think occupational therapists would love a tool like RAP that takes what they're working with people on and organizes it. How when RAP was first developed, it was developed out of people's frustration um, with knowing all of these great things to do, knowing how to exercise and how to work on your diet and um, and how to meditate and how to being with your dog helps you feel better and going to a support group. But what they were looking for was a way to organize it into their lives, and I think that's what RAP is a way of organizing your life, and the kind of the marriage of that with occupational therapy seems to me like a really good idea, and we've had some interest in that, and be sure to let us know if there's some way we should be working together.
Great. Okay, here's our last question, and this question comes up a lot. Mary Ellen, how about developing a RAP app?
How about developing a RAP app? Well,
she goes on to say, this would be wonderful for use on smartphones and tablets like iPads. I use my iPad for so many things, including my mood charting.
Okay, well, nice that you should have asked that very important question. We are in the process of developing a RAP app. If you send me an email over the next couple of weeks and I don't get back to you quickly, it's because I'm working intensively on that project. It just received funding, and we're hoping that we have it out. It takes about 3 months, and so we're hoping to have a RAP app by the fall. So isn't that exciting? So I'm going to need just the little time to put that together, and then we're all set. So thank you all. Thank you all for being with us this afternoon. And remember, we're going to be going much more intensively through advanced directives. And I know that a lot of questions have come up over time about advanced directives. And so I really would like to work with you on advanced directives more specifically. And I also would like feedback from you on how these webinars are helpful to you, and if there's ways that we can make them more helpful. So be sure and email us and let us know. You can